Hi guys, how's it going? Welcome back to All for United. This is All for United Uncut, where you have your favourite host, plus Natalie, because she's not technically a host, you know. Where we just talk about United, really. That's all we do. We usually get a few drinks in, well, some of us do, and we usually have a good laugh as well. So make sure you get in the comments, let us know what you're having tonight. As usual, we will start with the questions. Ben, you're busy tweeting, so I'll go to Mark. Mark, what are you drinking?
I've got strawberry and vanilla gin tonight. Something.
Oh, he's actually got a gin.
I have. Well, yeah, I thought I'd make a change, go against the grain. I've got a drink. So yeah.
Here we go. Right, everyone in the comments, let's have a guess at what John's drinking tonight. I'm gonna guess it starts with a C.
I bet it's a woo woo.
But can you guess how low down the bottle it's going?
Hey, I bet it's going to be the same amount. It's going to be the same amount.
Look, it's getting there, guys. How many shows have we done? 5. So that's like 5 hours. That's not bad in 5 hours drinking, guys. You got it. But this time I am mixing it up with something different. I've gone for like the topical juice instead of orange juice. So
that sounds good.
I'm venturing out, guys. I'm venturing out.
Nat, does he drink this heavily during the women's show, or is it just during our one?
Just during your one. I think this is.
It's just this one.
I've never really drank a lot during the women's show. I think we're too deep into it, talking about what's going on. But you know, this is uncut, so
this is a far less sensible show. What are you drinking?
I'm on a Stella.
Yes, go on, Nat.
Classic. Now, Ben, what have you got? Because last time you were having a water.
Oh, I've got myself a little Peroni.
The number of Peronis I have in my fridge that aren't mine is actually quite scary.
Really? Well, see that you see this is a gluten-free one. We got a crate from someone for Easter. My partner's got celiac, so she's not allowed any gluten. So we got sent a crate of gluten-free Peroni. Cheers, guys.
Fair. And yes, everyone in the comments. Yes, I know what you're thinking. Hang on a minute. What is that thing in the top right of the screen? That's a shaving mark.
Should we do a David Attenborough? And there is a mark in his natural habitat.
Listen, don't be jelly. I said this to you before. All right, stop taking the piss, you bastards.
I'm just some of the viewers might be wondering who that is. It looks like a different person.
It is a completely different face. I'll give you that.
Right, before we went live, Ben was asking you a question, and I wanted this to be spoken about live because there was a very important conversation going on about moisturizer. Now, I'm just going to leave that to you two because I don't know what
Mark said that he needed to air his skin, so I asked him if he moisturised, and he said yes.
Fucking hell. So basically, the beard was really itchy the other week. All right, so every so often I have to get rid of the whole thing, and yes, I do moisturise. And yes, you might take the piss. But the funny thing is, Karthik messaged me earlier and he asked me what product I use.
He asked me that earlier on too, and I didn't even know that he knew that I moisturise. So I don't know where that question came from.
Who said it's from my face?
You got to moisturise twice a day.
Mm-hmm.
See? Yeah.
3 if you mean.
3 if you. Mark, can I ask you a really personal question?
Depends. Go on.
So when you shave the chin, do you shave the chest as well?
I don't have any chest hair, mate. So
unfortunate
like that.
I thought that was leading somewhere else. Then I'm not gonna lie.
I wouldn't. We've got ladies on the show. We've got an actual lady with us today. I'm going to be well behaved.
He said, "It's a good thing Joe's not here because it'll just be chaos." Joe bottled it, by the way, everyone. He got so upset that he just decided not to come on the show today because Ireland are shit. What happened in the Qatar game? Did they draw?
Well, yeah, Nat, did you catch the show last week? We're talking about the fact that Ireland hadn't won a game since since November 2019. And they had 3 winnable fixtures over the international break, and they lost 2 of them. Drew one of them, lost one of them against Luxembourg, and then they drew against Qatar last night as well. Last week as well.
Yeah. Embarrassing. For England was embarrassing.
Well, but is that more embarrassing than losing 5-2 at home to West Brom, guys?
I saw a tweet today. Someone posted a picture of Thomas Tuchel and said, "My manager's still unbeaten with 11 men." I was like, all right then, sound. Do those not count anymore when you ever send enough? Sure, our 6-1 defeat to Spurs doesn't count. Our 6-1 defeat to City in 2011 doesn't count. So technically we won the league. So there you go. Yeah.
But obviously where I live, and probably similar to where you live, Mark, I know like a lot of Wolves supporters, Birmingham supporters, Villa supporters, and there's so many unhappy people at the moment that I know because they all hate Albion. So the fact that Albion has now got that win, I'm surrounded by people constantly moaning. So I just can't win either way. I can't. So
well, I've got a Newcastle fan in my house, and he's breaking it now. The West Brom have won.
do we think Sam will keep them up? Do we think he'll keep them up?
Yeah,
miracles.
It's Big Sam. You can't count him out.
Well, history would suggest, and I guess they've got that on their side, but it's going to be a bit touch and go, isn't it?
Especially if they keep getting like shock results like this.
I was going to say, have you seen the bottom? So you've got Brighton at 16th on 32 points, Newcastle 28 points in 17th, and you've got Fulham 26 points in 18th. West Brom, they're still only on 21 points in 19th place. I can't see them staying up at all. I can't see it.
You usually need 38 points, don't you? Roughly 38 points. That's what the aim is. Maybe a little bit less every now and again, but I can't see him picking up that many points. But you never know. If anyone can, it would be Sam, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
How did Thomas Tuchel get manager of the month, by the way?
Well, because they're playing really well. They weren't conceding goals. They look like a different side. I mean, I wasn't on the Tuchel. I've got a couple of Chelsea, mates who are Chelsea fans. Look, from his PSG days, from what I heard, he could set a team up not to lose very well, but getting them to win and play free-flowing football is another, so to speak, problem of his. He rarely see a Tuchel side go out there and score 4, 5, 6 goals, create 13, 14, 15 chances a game and get you on your feet. You usually see the Thomas Tuchel side sets you up well, gets all the creaks out your defence, make sure that you can hold a 0-0 or hold a 1-0 win. But there's no progressive play. And I think we've seen that with his Chelsea side. He's set them up not to lose, and they've done really well at not losing for 11 games. But they haven't really taken a game by the scruff of the neck, have they? So,
sorry, I'm just putting Mark and John waving to each other in the middle.
I was putting my hand up to speak, and then Marcus waved to me back.
Yes, John, you can speak now. Go on.
Isn't that what Ollie kind of gets criticised for, though, setting the team up not to get beat?
That's not what we do either. That's not what we do, though. But people seem to think that is what we do, and then they go.
Oh yeah, but that's what other people say. That's what I'm saying. That's what people moan about. Oh, we didn't go for the win. He just wants to sit back and hope for the best or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. That's what general consensus is. But as soon as Chelsea does it, it's a brilliant thing to do. Manager of the month. Yeah. I don't know. I'm saying this angle. Can
you imagine what the reaction would have been if Ollie had come out and said the same things Tuchel did, like, here's a 12:30 kickoff on a Saturday. I didn't expect much. Can you imagine the reaction that would have got? Yeah, the standards have fallen at this club. How can this clown say this?
Well, look at just even like when we drew with West Brom, the reaction compared to this. Now, no, I'm not really seeing much. I am seeing Chelsea fans getting upset, and obviously because I follow more United fans than Chelsea fans. But there's articles, there's all this chatter from different kind of people, but I'm not really seeing much. I'm not seeing no BBC reports. I'm not seeing no one saying, is he the right man? Like you said, he's just won manager of the month. And now, he just got battered by West Brom, who was second from bottom. And there's not really much. It's just sort of, it's one of them days kind of talk. I don't understand it, but it's crazy. They're always going to aim at United in a way, aren't they? It's a big club and people do expect a lot more from us. But, I thought Chelsea were up. They were supposed to be this great team. Look at all the millions they spent and look at where they are and what they're doing. It's not really
60 million on 60 million on Kai Havertz to get one more assist than Sam John's done.
That's a good start.
That's what 60 million gets you.
That is a good start. Do we think though, with the results today, do you think that's top 4 for us? Do you think a win tomorrow and more or less it's nailed? That's top 4 done?
Yeah. Should be.
I think so. Even top 2's done for me. Top 2's done. I think if we win tomorrow, I know it'll be like 4 points off Leicester, and they can, 4 points. But I think I've always said it, we had that little spat patch, but get some good quality, forwards in. We can win. We could. I don't want to say anything, but I'm confident. I always have been.
I think Leicester have a harder run in than we do. That's for sure. So with a win tomorrow, 4 points clear, you would think that we could do the business. I nearly tweeted earlier on top 4 done with a win tomorrow, but I can't do it yet. No. I'll tweet top 4 done when it's done.
It's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Does everyone want to see City win tomorrow? Just to kind of make sure that Leicester drop points. Or
that happened today, John.
John, are you all right?
I don't even know. I had to follow this today. I've been at work.
You're right, mate. How much of that Captain's Morgan have you had today? Show us the bottle again.
I don't even know that was today. Tomorrow.
John, just to let you know, mate, City won 2-0.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
fair enough. That's good and dusted. I have fun this today. I've come straight home from work, had some sleep, got up, got ready for the show.
John, what day is it?
Mate, all the guys on the MU Women channel are laughing because I never know what day it is. Honestly, I do now. I know today's Saturday because this Uncut show is always Saturday, but the other days of the week just all blend into one.
It's Friday.
It's
Friday.
No, don't say that. Don't say that.
It's the pure seriousness of which does anyone want it to win tomorrow? And we're all just looking at it like, what?
I need to be home more. That's what I need to do. I need to be able to go on Twitter more, watch more matches. I need to chill out a bit from work, I think.
Just so you know as well, John, Liverpool have just beaten Arsenal too.
Yeah, but Dad texted me that one earlier. He texted me that them two was playing. Yeah, and that was against Arsenal.
Oh, God. I saw a great tweet. I saw a great tweet, and I think it's a guy called Alexi, or I know, and it said, or someone tweeted it, and it was 5th. It was 10th versus 7th. Used to be, Burnley and those kind of teams. Now it's Liverpool and Arsenal. I just thought that is classic. That is classic.
Arsenal were absolutely awful in that. I watched the first half. They were horrendous that first half. Like, we're going about Arteta ball and how it's a shadow of Guardiola's masterpiece and Arteta's learned everything he knows from Guardiola. That first half, Arsenal didn't even look like a top 10 team. They were woeful. And then the second half, they brought on Jota Liverpool and they just completely teared Arsenal apart in that second half. Look, I know Arsenal has some injuries, but if I'm an Arsenal fan watching that, I am extremely concerned because it was
and we
just
couldn't beat them.
Yeah. Well, it goes to show, doesn't it?
Oh,
small teams are hard to break down, mate.
Whenever I watch them, I just think, how did we not beat this team? They're so bad.
What a signing Jota was for Liverpool, really.
Yeah, Jota.
It's been a great signing.
Yeah, well, and he's spent 12 weeks out injured recently. Yeah, we're still talking about him being a great signing. He's missed half the season. It's crazy, isn't it?
An impact, didn't he, before his injury?
Yeah.
And I don't think any of that conversation was never going to take place, but he made a huge impact, got injured, and Liverpool fell apart. And he's come back in and brilliant again. So do you know what, though, Mark? It goes to show what happens when you buy very, very good Premier League footballers and put them into a very, very good Premier League side. You don't always need to shop outside the league. Like, for instance, I always say it, when the likes of Antonio Valencia come into us, like, you know what you're getting there with a player. He's a very good footballer. He's never going to become a world-class footballer, but he's going to come in, he's proven at the top level, and he can do a job for you week in, week out in the league. And if you can get more players like that within your squad, and I say within your squad, then you're going to be all the better for it when you're having a long season or a title charge. I think Jota's been a superb signing. It's about the system, though, isn't it? Something that Liverpool have been doing for the last few years. They've been using a new, tried and tested analytical system. So they'll look at players that fit that mold, or they'll look at statistics, essentially. So the XG lovers will absolutely love that. And I think it goes back to Mohamed Salah. They wanted Julian Brandt, but he went to Dortmund. Now the next best thing for them was Mo Salah, because he hit that criteria and those attributes. And it's something that United have been looking at getting in place as well. And ultimately, if you're bringing in the right players to fit those credentials, it will work. And he's been one of those signings.
Speaking of signings, Mark, thank you for that lovely segue. Another player that United have been linked to this week, Erling Haaland, his agent, Mr. Mino Raiola, as we all love on this channel. Who doesn't love a bit of Mino? Hey? No? Just me? Yeah, of course it was. I hate the guy, just to make sure. I was just joking. We all saw what he's been saying. He's been a busy man this week, hasn't he? I saw a post earlier today of the Erling Haaland European Tour. That's what I saw today. That was quite funny. I like that one. We'll start with what he said about Paul Pogba. It's on the thumbnail. If anyone's actually bothered to look at the thumbnail, I hope you have. What did we think? Because, again, this Paul Pogba story comes up again, and we're all thinking, what's going to happen now? What do you think?
Before we be serious on this, I'll go to John first, to be serious on this. How good of an agent is Mino Raiola, by the way? He's perfect for any big footballer out there. He's just brilliant. The absolute media storm of publicity he has made this week by doing all these meetings about Haaland made sure that the press is briefed so that everyone's talking about it. The guy's a freaking genius. Literally, you've got cameras following him out of airports just to take a photograph of him. Mino Raiola, he should be a nobody. but everyone knows who he is, and he's getting followed around like an A-list celebrity. He's an absolutely phenomenal football agent, but an absolute arse at the same time. He's someone you just love to. He's like a Bond villain, isn't he? That you just love and hate. Go on, Jonathan. Sorry.
No, I agree with what you said. Look, it's his job to create awareness for his player, isn't it? And to make his player in demand. And the more people talk about that player, the more hype that there is on that player. And I was thinking about this when I found out the title of the show was to do with Pogba, because I've been asleep all day. Okay. No, but as soon as I thought about that, I'm thinking to myself, right, why don't people like Pogba, this, that, and the other? And I'm thinking, obviously, it's not much to do about him. It's all to do with his agent. Now, his agent only really speaks about Pogba probably twice a year, but he'll speak about him in January, for example, in an international break. That talk will then last 6 months or so, and then bang, he'll say something else, and then that will last another 6 months. In the meantime, the next month he'll talk about like a Haaland, and then give it 6 months and talk about Haaland, and he'll go through all his players like that. So there's always the top players are getting linked with other players or creating talking points. So to me, he only needs to speak like twice a year on one particular player. But because of what he says and the hype around that player, it just lasts. And that's all he needs to do, just give one interview a month on his top players, and then he just carries on, and those kind of things work. But yeah, I mean, top class when it comes to doing his job in that way, but the way he goes about it, obviously, fans don't like it, do they? And rightly so.
Well, he's a dream for any footballer that wants to go and experience different leagues. And I think that's what the case is with Haaland. I reckon he wants to, not exactly like Zlatan, but sort of along that mould of he wants to try his luck at every league and see what he can achieve there. And I think that's the perfect agent for him, because he's going to get a move no matter what. And he'll always have that, you know, he puts in these little things that makes it happen, like a release clause, like an agent fee that you go, you know what, we'll get him, we'll keep him for however long we can do. And if someone pays this much, we're happy to let him go. And that's always going to be the case with Raiola. But as Ben says, he should be a nobody. How many other agents do you know that you know, a high profile like Mino Raiola? And you have to think to an extent. Now, yes, he has good relationships with certain clubs and certain players, but he's also burning a lot of bridges at the minute. You saw his comments about Pep Guardiola. We already know his relationship with United. How sustainable is that kind of agent, do you think? Do you reckon it's a case of just Raiola can do that sort of thing? Or do you reckon other agents almost look at him and go, yeah, that's not the way to go about it? What do we think about the way he works in general?
Well, I think this kind of started with Ronaldo and Messi, really. You know, Messi's always been criticised for doing wonderful things at one club. Now, Ronaldo kind of broke that mould a little bit, frustratingly for us, where he's gone to Real Madrid, earned everything. Obviously, did it at United. He's gone to Juve. So I think that kind of started there. So I think that, you know, at some point, like any business or businessman, someone's going to jump on that and think, right, how can we make some money from this? And as you've all pointed out, he's very good at his job. You know, he seems to say the right things at the right times. He's created this mass hysteria for one player, and ultimately, you know, any kind of publicity is great publicity, right? Now, the way that I see it as well, in my personal opinion, I don't think Real Madrid or Barcelona can afford him. But the reason why they are getting involved and having meetings is to appease their fans. So really, I think there's probably only one or two clubs really that can go after him. And as I said, the clubs need to look like they're doing the right thing for their fans. So, I mean, it's just an absolute merry-go-round, isn't it? But, you know, ultimately he does his job, does it well, gets paid lots of money. He's happy. He couldn't give a shit what we say about him.
Yeah, well, clearly, and I think what you said about the two clubs that are actually in for him, I think that's a good point, because Barca can't afford him. They don't have anyone that they can really sell, other than maybe clear off Messi's wages and maybe put something there. But even that's not enough. Madrid, I think, is an outside shout, because I think they're looking to move on Varane. They've not renewed Ramos's contracts. I think they're trying to move on Lucas Vázquez and people like that. So potentially them, but it's going to be City, isn't it? It just is. That's like a tap-in for them, isn't it?
Can I just jump in on this one? Just another question here. If Haaland didn't have Raiola as a manager, as an agent, would people keep on talking about Haaland so much? So we know he's a good player, but is it just hype as well? I'm not saying is it just hype, but because he's still young, he's still not achieved loads in his personal career. We know he's a good player and he deserves to be spoken about. But is it being spoken about because he's mainly one of his clients, maybe?
No, I think we live in a generation now where stats speak more than quality, and I think if you have a look at Ryder's stats, are enough for any football fan to sort of wax lyrical about him, even without watching him. If you want me to be honest, I've only seen him play Champions League football 2 or 3 times. I've not actually watched him, but I've seen enough those 2 or 3 times to think that the kid's going to be an absolute star, because he's been a handful for the defence. He's scored goals that natural goal scorers score. And if I have a look at that, then have a look at his record, combine that with how good he's been in my football manager career mode, freaking fantastic. He's well worth 150 million to me. But I think the problem is that thought process there, which, by the way, that's me being slightly, whatever, facetious, I suppose is the word to use. I think there's so many fans out there with that mindset, so they will go for it. For me, if I've got to pick any striker out there that I love to see at United, it's Harry Kane more than Haaland, without a doubt. Yeah. But obviously, if Haaland's in the shop window, there was a good point made in the chat earlier with the situation Dortmund are in at the moment. Yeah. They need a rebuild. So could they still sell Haaland and Sancho this summer? I don't know. People are saying no, but I don't think that's not a possibility. I think they could sell both. You think they get 300 million for both of those players, here or thereabouts, potentially? That's a lot of money for them to be able to rebuild that squad when they're 7 points off the top 4 and potentially not even getting European football next year. So, yeah, I think it's interesting. But I do agree with what, Mark, I think you said it when it comes to finance. I think 2 clubs can sign him this summer. That's United or City. And I think City are desperate for him. Yeah. I don't think United will show. Yeah, but I don't think United will show that desperation.
No,
I think
not
City
yet.
will.
Anyway. Yeah, that's a good point. And
I think. Sorry, mate. Just very quickly, I think we saw a little bit more astuteness from United last summer. You know, we didn't have our hand forced into buying Sancho. We rightly said we're not going to pay that money. We rightly said we aren't going to buy Reguilon because of his buyback. Essentially, we have started to make some better moves. We need to see more of that. But I think when it comes to players, unfortunately, everyone's in the limelight. We have this, we talk about this all the time with social media. A player has to start somewhere. It's not their fault they are brought into the limelight. And I think that clubs know enough, and I think that agents know enough to know when a player is going to be incredible. And he is a very good striker. There's absolutely no doubt about that. He's going to get hopefully mature and get the right development. And let's not be, it's not just the player and the agent that does this. As I said a minute ago, it's the clubs too. Yeah, they know that he's a great player and they're going to talk about this like he's the next best thing. Oh, we're in for him. We're excited and all this. And they might not get him. But again, it shows the fan that they're interested in the right people.
Yeah, and just quickly on Haaland, I think in terms of the stats thing, yes, he's a fantastic player, but one thing you've got to notice about the way Haaland plays is, yes, he scores some fantastic goals, but a lot of them are, for Dortmund in the league anyway, they're all in the penalty box. He's getting that supply. He has to go to a club that gets that supply. Now, if he came to United, I don't see him getting that level of supply. If he goes to City, he's scoring about 60 in the next season. That's just going to happen. With regards to whether Dortmund can sell both him and Sancho, I think potentially yes, but I don't think it's going to happen to the same club, obviously. I don't think they'd do that. I could see United getting Sancho this summer. I think that's a tap-in for us at this point because we know Sancho wanted to leave, and if they're performing like this, Sancho's going to want out, so I think that's done. With Haaland, I think a lot of clubs are going to wait for next season because that's when that release clause kicks in. And that's when we're going to see a load of clubs pounce on him.
City would test him this summer, though, without a doubt. Yeah. I don't think United will, but I think City will. And I think if City go in with 120 to 150 million, I think he goes to City this summer. I don't think Dortmund turn that down.
Yeah, and Raiola will obviously try and push that because that gets his agent fee up. If he has to go on a release clause, he can't maximise that. So he's going to push it this summer and he'll try and tease City into it. But I think most of it will happen next summer if he doesn't go.
I know you've got to take these things with a pinch of salt, but Pep did come out and say that they couldn't afford a striker. What do you reckon?
He would say that, though, wouldn't he?
Of course. But
it's like when Ollie came out and said, "Oh, we can take advantage of the transfer market," and then Ed Woodward came out literally 3 days later and said, "No, we can't. We're poor." So it's probably one of them, I reckon.
But that's the thing, though. I think for me, isn't it? It's the COVID situation. I know we were just talking about, is he a good agent? He's a good agent potentially when all these big clubs do have all this money, but not as many clubs are going to have as much money. Potentially, you might have seen Sancho and Haaland go to the same club, but no club could afford that now, really. Not even us, potentially. I mean, we could, but, you're going to make a good business decision. You couldn't afford it. And I think that might see, like, someone like him not dying out, but, we might see less of this kind of big transfer just because of, like, the COVID situation. It might take a while for clubs to build up their finances again. But like you say, City, that might be the one big one that they do get because they're not going to have Aguero. And, I think they're screaming, they need someone, don't they? They need someone in there who's going to score the goals. Yeah, they score goals all around the team, but I think they do need that number 9.
If you had to pick between Haaland or Sancho this summer, Nat, in the United side, who you go for?
Probably Sancho, just because we need a right winger, don't we? A bit more. But I mean, I think our time for Haaland was when he went to Dortmund. That's when we should have got him, but obviously we didn't, because there was talk of he's trying to hold us to ransom, Raiola. He's doing all this kind of thing, and I mean, maybe we might get to a point. I'm not saying that we will, but where we don't have to deal with him. I mean, a big agent that I was just thinking of that I don't see as much anymore. I'm not saying he's not still in it. Is that Kia Jarabshin? Who had Mascherano and Tevez.
Yeah.
I've not. He used to be the Raiola. Maybe this is me showing my age, but he used to be the one that everyone talked about. I never knew who Raiola was, and then suddenly Raiola's come out there like that. This big agent. So I think it works in cycles in a way, sort of with these guys. Maybe, like you say, the circus kind of thing that he's doing. It's good for his clients, but like you say, unless City put that 150 million down, who's taking him? No one. No one else can do it. So we can do all this now and talk about and have all these meetings, but like you say, it's only us and City who can afford it. And if we don't do it, then he's sitting there still in Dortmund, isn't he? Really?
Do you think?
I was just going to ask. Do you think we've got egg on our face a bit with the Bellingham, with the Haaland deals by not getting them early, or do you think the right thing to do is to wait for times like this and overpay for them? Because you think about it, Bellingham's going to be an absolute fortune when it comes around to someone actually going in for him, because he's going to be world class. You just know, you can see the talent of the kid. So would we have been better trying to get them into the club early, potentially grow them to love the club, develop them ourselves, or?
I think no, because obviously Haaland went to Dortmund with a release fee. So if we'd signed him, everyone would go, well, how long do we have him for? And then we're going to struggle to keep him. So I think we're better off in this position.
Exactly right. I think with Bellingham, I don't think he's necessarily a player that we need right now. I think with Haaland, you're absolutely right. If you have anyone with Raiola as your client, there is more than likely going to be a clause, and he would have put that into us as well. Yep. So it's definitely not the right time. Unfortunately, it's going to cost us a bit more if we do go for him. Probably not. But that was just always going to happen. And he'll probably have another one if he comes to us. Yeah, so it's just unfortunate. And he'll probably get more expensive the more it goes. So I agree with you, Nat. Spot on about the right winger. We managed to cope last season without a number 9, okay? And I'm not saying that that's the system that we need to play, but we do have the players there in order to do so. Now, with Sancho, we need that right winger. We can't keep shoehorning Greenwood or anyone else onto the right-hand side. Greenwood has actually done a very good job, and it's not his natural thing to do, okay? And also, you've got to remember about what effect that has on the rest of the team. We have an extra goal scorer. We have an extra player that can create. We will see a lot more from Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I've said this so many times, Karthik, we've had this conversation. The reason why Luke Shaw is so bloody good on that left-hand side is because when Rashford plays, their link-up and their relationship now is spot on. The reason why Aaron Wan-Bissaka can't overlap and do as well as he can going forward is because he doesn't have that right winger that's going to know their job and allow to overlap and that sort of thing, yeah? So a right winger for me is definitely the number 1 priority. If we can get a striker as well, great. Probably not, though.
When you mention Greenwood, it raises the question for me now that we're almost at this crossroads where we let Haaland go to City or we buy him now. Do you reckon Ollie's looking at it and going, I'm gonna gamble on Mason here and let's just go run with it? Do you reckon that's where he's at right now, or do you reckon it's the case of, well, if he doesn't go now, we'll go get Haaland next summer, or if he goes to City, we just fucked? What do you reckon the situation is?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the situation. You know, we've been talking about Greenwood now for a couple of years. We can all see it. They can all see it. The media can all see it. He is a very good player, and he's not been played in his right position. So you're not going to see the best out of him. He is an out-and-out number 9. He's got a lot to learn. He does have the players around him. Hopefully, he'll have Cavani for enough time to be able to pick up those extra bits. But he needs to at some stage. We can't keep revisiting this conversation and saying, "Oh, when can we put him in the middle? Can we keep playing him out on the right?" He needs to start getting that exposure in the middle, and he will do a good job. He's not going to hit the ground running necessarily. If he does, great, but he probably won't. But he needs to be integrated into that number 9 role more than now than later, to be honest.
The problem I have isn't with whether Greenwood's a number 9 or not. It's whether actually Cavani stays next season, and if we can get enough game time out of Cavani for him to be, so to speak, our second choice number 9. I just don't think we can if he does stay, and I'm not convinced he's staying anyway. Then we're leaving ourselves incredibly thin without a striker. I mean, you could argue that we haven't got an out-and-out number 9 already at the club at the moment. Yeah, Greenwood's getting there and potentially will get there soon, and is a natural striker. But there's not one person at United side we trust to get 30 goals a season. That's the problem we've got. And for me, we've got to be challenging for the title next year. And you can't do that without a striker that is going to get you 30 goals a season.
For me, though, the man isn't Haaland. I think you sort of mentioned it before, Ben. It's Harry Kane. And Kane sort of put it out there. Everyone knows, Spurs won't get Champions League, even if they probably do. Me, I think, since he popped on the scene and started scoring the goals and the regular, and, I thought he's a natural for us, And people might not like him, might think Haaland's better, potential, whatever. I don't care. You can tell he's established. It's like, just go and get him. Yeah, you're going to have to spend a lot of money, but, if you've got a guy there who wants to leave.
Harry Kane just screams Man United, doesn't he? He just does. You look at him and you think, yeah. I'd love him. I'd love Harry Kane. Plus, he suits the thing that Ollie wants from a number 9 as well. He wants him to be involved with the build-up. We've seen that at Spurs. He's developed that part of his game as well. He's got, second or most number of assists in the league. So, apart from the injuries, yes, Vicky, you're absolutely right. That's the one thing that puts me off Harry Kane. Those annual ankle injuries in about January, Feb. Is he worth that money if we're gonna deal with that? Do you reckon?
Well, this is the other thing, isn't it? Harry Kane, Daniel Levy, we're dealing with someone that's going to be very difficult to negotiate with, and he's not going to come any cheaper than 120. So, at least. So if you're doing that, really, I mean, you might as well wait until if no one goes for Haaland this summer, which I think is likely. I really think that nobody. I think they'll sell Sancho, but I don't think anybody's going to get Haaland. I really don't. And then it opens up the avenue of he's got his release clause. I think everyone would be stupid to go for him next year and trigger release clause. It makes no sense. So as I say, I think you're probably better off waiting for him next year, not Harry Kane, just because Daniel Levy's going to be a nightmare.
Go on, John. I was
just going to say, all these players that we're mentioning, obviously they're big money, aren't they? Can you see us buying these players and then one or two others? No. That's fair. Unfortunately, I know you've all said that like Sancho's potentially there for the taking because we put all the groundwork in last season. Haaland, yeah, I would love him, and so Harry Kane, absolutely. But that's pretty much all our budget got, if not more than our budget. And it shouldn't be like that. We still generate more money than pretty much anybody else. It shouldn't be like that. But for me, the fact that we talk about our style of play and look how far we've fallen. This conversation is how far we've fallen. We're the best players in the world, and I'm basically saying I don't think we'll get it because I don't think we'll spend that much money on them. And it's a shame because these are the best players in the world, and we should at least be able to put an offer in for them. But I'll be surprised even if we put the offer in.
But it's down, Jonathan, isn't it down to the blueprint of what the club's doing? and how we're going to be going about things. Like Nat said earlier on, if we're going to bring in Haaland this summer, but we're not going to bring in potentially someone who can actually help assist him and someone who can help actually provide him opportunities, then Haaland's not going to make the instant impact that we want him to make. If we're in the summer, we're going to go out and buy Harry Kane, and that's it. Kane can score, he can assist, and he probably suits this current United team a heck of a lot better than Haaland does right now. I still say it. I think if you put Harry Kane in the United team this year, I think we do a heck of a lot better than we have done this year, because that's how good Harry Kane is and what he brings to the club. Better than what Haaland would have done if Haaland was with the club at the start of the year. So I think it's down to what United are trying to build. This summer, if we bring in a defensive midfielder or a centre-back, and the right winger being Sancho, then we're building to bring in a centre forward who's not going to be reliant on his own goals and his own techniques and his own leadership. So a younger striker who can grow into that role potentially. Whether that's Greenwood or not, I don't know, but that would be my guessing. If we're going to go all out for a striker this summer who's ready-made, the best in his class in the league, then you go and get Harry Kane, and he gives you what another creative player doesn't, plus what he gives you as a striker. So I think it's just all dependent on the blueprint of what the club's going to do moving forward. And I'll say it again, we have to challenge for the league next year. We have to be closer to City next year. We can't do that without a blueprint. So
we're not going to sign a striker though, are we? I can just see it.
But if we don't, then we need to have a plan to make sure that we're bringing in a creative player and someone more in the midfield to give the rest of the team balance to then help that number 9 next summer. Whichever way we look at it, even if we bring in one striker this summer and no one else, next summer we'd have to go out and get a couple of defensive-minded players. So this summer, if we go and we get that right winger and a defensive-minded player, next summer we're only going to see a striker. So it's going to happen one way or another. We don't need to be really busy in these transfer windows now, because we've got a structure, a spine of a squad that just needs some of the best-in-class players to help it, I believe, personally. And then we can get there. But like Nat said at the very start, I do believe, like Nat said, we're only a few players away. But it's crucial we get the best in class. Yeah. We don't go spunk 20, 50 million on Fred. Or signing like that. We go out and get a player who's their best in class and not take risks. That's important now. And they cost.
Just quickly, that's what I was saying earlier. With these new analytical ways of buying players, that's what they'll be looking at. Now, you've got to remember, sometimes it's not always about getting world beaters, okay? Now, United, with the new structure, are going to look at it one of two ways. They're either going to try and get a marquee signing to show, look, we've got a director of football, we mean business, we now know what we're doing and all this, or they're going to get someone in that's going to be able to fit the mold, actually be a hidden, unearthed gem, and could be very good. And this is what it's all about. They'll want to prove either they can do one or the other.
But Mark, I'm gonna. This is the first time I've ever said this. I'm gonna actually completely disagree with you. I think the opposite. I think the problem is if we go out there for someone who could be good, we're not hitting it on the money again. We're going out. We're taking a risk in the window. I think we're past that. I think we now need to make sure that our spine's cemented, and by doing that, we have, like someone put in here, Pedro Neto and Rafinha, two fantastic players who have done really well in the Premier League. But they've not done it on the biggest stage. They've not looked anywhere near the best in class in those positions. They're good players, and if we had a squad and a spine that was structured to suit them, 100%. Let's go buy them for 30, 40 million and give them a go. I think the problem we're in now is our squad lacks so much that world-class players bring you, and we need proper class within this team now. So I can see where you're coming from, and I get it, and that's exciting, but we need better than good.
I do agree with you. And I do think that the best way to go is to get those ready-made players. However, going on track record, I just don't believe that United will be capable of doing that. I don't think they'll be capable of wanting to spend that money. I don't think that they'll be, do you know what I mean? And then we're going to have to wait another 4 windows.
But that's when we need to question the board, we need to question the setup, and we need to question the management on why that's not happened, because that's the natural next step for United. You can just see, mate, it's crying out. You'd agree with me on this. Centre back crying out for one, defensive midfielder crying out for one, striker, right winger. We're crying out for them. The problem is getting in a quick fix or a good player isn't going to fix that problem. We need a world beater on that right-hand side. We need a number 9 that's going to score you 30 goals a season. A good striker doesn't do that for you. You need a prolific goal scorer. Yeah. And unfortunately, with the climate we're in and the way football's in now, they're going to cost you money. They are. So spending 120 million is always going to be a gamble. But at least if you can look at their record and go, do you know what, they're the best in class, you're taking less of a risk than going, do you know what, 60 million might do a job for us. That's where it goes wrong, because Fred, I'll go back to it, £50 million when he first came in with all that promise, good player. Guardiola wanted him at City. For me, I look at that now and I go, I still don't think we spent that much money on him for him to even be classed as a flop. But I don't think in this day and age, £50 million for Fred is a good deal whatsoever. So that's where the problem is with football at the moment, and why I feel like we can't take that risk again. We have to go and get someone best in class within their positions.
I do agree with that. Fred obviously is a very good example of that. However, that was also before the restructuring, the rebuilding, Ollie came in, started. So that was during the time when we were bringing in many poor players. And it's only been at that point, really, just before and whilst Ollie came in, that he was like, right, this is how we need to do it, restructure. And now we'll start to get the right players in. And we've seen that. We've seen that the players that have been brought in have been very, very good since that point. So, yeah, I absolutely agree. Fred is not a good example. He's a good squad player, but that's it. And he doesn't quite fit our system. But he was the last of those bad signings, and hopefully we continue to get better ones.
How big of a spanner in the works is it if Paul Pogba leaves this summer?
Sorry, Nat. Wait a second, Nat.
Yeah.
Go on, Nat. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say I agree with both of you, what you're sort of saying in terms of we need that class now. But, look at when we got Bruno. I didn't even know who Bruno was, and I don't know if maybe they're going to look for these kind of players like him, like a striker like Bruno, where you can spend, they spent 50 million, was it, on Bruno, where you can spend something like that and get that still quality. So, I mean, like I said, there'll be people in the Italian league probably that I've never heard of that are scoring loads of goals. French league, I don't know. Maybe they might look it for Portugal again, any top strikers they've got there. But I agree, though, we're past the point, because then you can get people like Fred, where you think, oh, look, he's smashing it in X League, but he doesn't come good. And I think, yeah, we are past that point. So we should be going out and getting your Kane, your Haaland, Sancho's. But at the same time, it looks like they're still in the sort of, let's try a Bruno Fernandes, and he's obviously worked out, but then you could say maybe that was a risk, that could have ended up like Fred. Obviously,
Bruno had the best, so to speak, and again, when I say best in class, you can look at it in a number of different ways, from watching them through rankings, through reputation, statistics, whatever. But Bruno did have the best creativity so maybe that's record in Europe for 2 seasons. We won't go for someone on a reputation. We'll just go for them on maybe less of a reputation, but still that quality. The blueprint. Yeah, that's a good point.
Just before we talk about Pogba, can I just quickly say, I think it will have to be a mix, because if we want to push for a title next season, I can think of possibly 4 positions where we need to kind of improve on in the starting 11. There's no way we can afford 4 best in classes when it comes to reputation, because it's just no way. I can think of a centre-back, CDM, right wing and attacker that we need probably to compete against City next season.
Are we crying out for a centre-back?
Yes.
Yeah.
Really?
I think it affects it. I do think it affects it.
Outside of the 2 we start, what do we have?
But then that's my point. That's my point. That's a good point. But what I'm trying to say is, I don't disbelieve the fact that Victor Lindelof and Maguire potentially aren't a great partnership, but I also don't think that they are the sole problem within the team. I think if they had a bit of shielding in front of them, someone to help them out, basically, is what I'm trying to say. I still think that them two could be solid in a title charge. I'm not saying we're winning the quadruple or the treble with them two at the centre of defence, but I still don't think that they're being helped. Lindelof's best season was when Matic was holding in the middle of the park, right? Maguire's best seasons at Leicester was when he had someone, when he had a Kante in front of him, when he had a player in front of him holding, right? This is the problem with Solskjaer's way that he's playing. These two players, they're too mixed within systems. They need a player there to help them out, to really bring the best out of them. And again, I think that improves the whole team. I think United are much better. And again, last season we saw it when Matic was in his best form, Maguire was playing regularly, Lindelof was playing regularly as well. With them two as a centre-back pair, we had the second best defensive record in Europe. I still think them two can do us a job if we had a proper holding midfielder in there.
I think, just to answer that one, I think a CDM for me is the most important role, yes. But I do still think that our 2 centre-back pairings Our centre-back pairing does make too many mistakes for my liking. I'm not saying it's the biggest problem in the area. I don't. I think, as you rightly said, I think if we had a proper CDM who could protect them more, who could free up the rest of the midfield, I do agree that's probably the most important position for me.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that.
But I do think that we need, and if we're going to bring in a centre-back, we can't just have anyone, otherwise you might as well keep the likes of Bailly, Twanzebe or Lindelof. You do need to upgrade. So that's what I'm thinking. If you're going to go for a good CDM, another good centre-back who's an upgrade, plus the right winger who's going to create and score goals, and a striker that's better than Martial and Cavani, all of a sudden I'm thinking that the money's kind of adding up now. So that's where I was kind of saying that we do need some who is like already established, and then some where Nat and Mark were saying regarding looking at the analytics and all that kind of stuff. I just think we need that good blend there. That's what I'm thinking.
If I wiped the slate though, and I said, what do United need to win the league next year? Do you still say 4 new signings?
Probably do, to be honest. Not necessarily in the starting 11, but I probably do think that we're about 4 players away.
That's for me. I think we're 4 players away from a dream team.
Yeah,
I think from a title challenge, I think we're so much closer. I think Nat sort of hit on it earlier on. I still think we're only 2. They've got to be a real quality player.
I don't think we're a million miles away. I really don't think we're a million miles away, but I still think that we do probably need like 2 quality players for each position. And then those.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Squad depth's important.
I think you're right. I think we're at least 2 away. I think a defensive midfielder is our most important acquisition. Karthik, I'm going to bore you again, mate. Probably bore the rest of you as well. It will improve our defence, which you hit on, Ben. Maguire and Lindelof aren't actually that bad. Okay, they've got much better since Henderson's been in the goal. Okay,
I agree.
it's far more commanding. His distribution's better. I think it just gives him a little bit of impetus to do the right things at the right time. However, it's not going to be a perfect partnership. You still need to have that quick centre back to sit next to them to get the perfect partnership. But unfortunately, at the moment, we've got to make do. So the next best thing is a defensive midfielder, which will shore up those 2 a little bit more. And then it will allow the attacking players to be able to go forward a little bit more as well. We're missing, unfortunately, Matic. Shit. So,
The dog agrees.
She does. Unfortunately, we are missing Matic at the moment. He's obviously really gone downhill. And Herrera, I've said this before, if we'd have kept Herrera, he would have been the perfect DM at the moment.
The thing of the centre-backs thing is, though, we need one just because we need one, because we only have 3.
What about your favourite player ever, Axel Tuanzebe?
Right, I love Axel, but it's just not working, is it, at the minute? It's just not.
No, do you know why it's not? It's because he's shite.
He's not shite, though, is he? He's just not.
He's not.
But then
He's not shite. He's not up to the mark, though, is he? Let's face it, he's not.
that centre back could be then like I'm not saying it's, but I'm not saying you have to go out and spend 80 million then on a Harry Maguire, but you could spend 10 million, get in a sort of decent step up, an upgrade kind of thing, like a backup kind of centre back. I don't know any names, so I'm not going to embarrass myself. But if we are saying Maguire, Lindelof, and then a quality central defensive midfielder in front of them, but yeah, I still think we need that centre back in that. Yeah, well, if Lindelof's injured, then what? If Maguire gets injured, Lindelof already is sort of carrying injury, so he's playing through it. But you can't ask him to do that next season and all next season. You need sort of that depth that we just sort of talked about, I suppose.
Do you know what, now I'm going to solve all our problems, right? We sign a quality defensive midfielder, a quality right winger. That solves everything. Do you know why it solves everything? Because Wan-Bissaka isn't having to be a right back, a right wing back, a right midfielder, a right forward, and an inside forward as well. So that way the pressure's off him. Carthy, you can tell me why I'm wrong here, but Wan-Bissaka would be able to do what he's good at, and that's defending. And he will really help those back two when he's doing that job. Then you've got a right winger there, which isn't taking anything away from your side and able to create opportunities from the right-hand side instead of having someone in nobody's land who doesn't know how to play the position. I just personally think that when we look at this side, again, it's a bit like last season. where everyone was like, left back's a massive problem. We're bringing in Tellez to start because it's a huge problem and there's loads wrong with it. Karthik knew, as he was eating his Kellogg's one morning, that Luke Shaw would come good and become the new Roberto Carlos, and there was no need for Alex Tellez. But the backup obviously works well, as you're saying there, Nat. Maybe a backup gives them a kick up the arse every now and then. So I am with you. I just think that if we're going to go out, we're going to spend the money and we need some world-class players. I do think that there's bigger problem areas than the centre-back positions. I suppose that's what I'm trying to get at. Maybe not if we want to challenge for Champions Leagues, but we're just not doing that at the moment. We need to focus on the league next year.
I agree.
But also, I do really agree with Mark and some of the comments. I think Dean Henderson's made a massively improved that centre-back pairing. And I think they're good. I think Maguire's fantastic. He doesn't get the credit he deserves. He's fantastic. And he was really good for England again the other night, yet people tried to blame him for Stones' stupid mistake. But still, I think he is the best English centre-back about. So, you know, he's playing for Manchester United. So it's about building that defence around him. Help him out. Help the rest of your team out. As Rio Ferdinand always says on all of his podcasts, the United teams were built to help each other function. And that's what Ollie needs to do now with this United team. Not create problems, but help the team, help the players around him. And that's fine. So, yeah, for me, it's a defensive midfielder, but it's definitely not Declan Rice.
Let's not get into that. Really quickly before we end the show, because I don't want us to get hate comments about clickbait and thumbnails. Right. If we're all talking about transfers, we're all talking about what we need. What we don't need is to lose one of our best midfielders. What the fuck do we do if Paul Pogba leaves? No one knows the answer because we know that nothing's going to happen. We're just going to lose him, and we're going to be like, right, great, sound. Van der Beek, all the pressure on you now, mate.
Well, that's what really gets me. People think, oh, Pogba leaves. That's it. Van der Beek gets in this United team, and he's the perfect person to play Paul Pogba's position. It's just mind blowing. We're talking earlier on about getting the best in class in their positions, getting in players to complement other players. Well, you do that for all of your team. So for me, the way you get the best out of Paul Pogba is by putting people in that Manchester United team to get the best out of Paul Pogba. So if we're going to buy a defensive midfielder, that's going to get the best out of Paul Pogba. You know, if we're going to buy a number 9 or a right winger who's actually got a bit of movement, that's going to suit Paul Pogba down to the ground. So for me, Paul Pogba's part of an exciting project right now. I don't think he goes anywhere in the summer. My problem is if this United board isn't switched on, we could lose him on a free next year. Yeah. And that's what's tough.
Absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. Listen, I was going to say this earlier. I don't think you're going to see a huge amount of spending. We don't get to see the finances, but unfortunately we are in a pandemic, even coming out the other side. And I don't think anybody really is going to be able to afford him. And this is why I think Haaland won't go anywhere. I think this is why we're going to be lucky if we get Sancho. I think you'll probably more than likely see trades, perhaps. And you're absolutely right, Ben. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I really don't. And I think that's obviously a massive positive for United. But I think that we're going to be probably looking at another departure for free again.
Do you know what's going to be really frustrating though? I think what happens is we see the best of Paul Pogba and he goes for free on his own accord. And then I think Man United come out and twist it and go, oh yeah, but we weren't held to ransom. And it's like, but that's not the point. You're completely missing the point there, like by not tying him down.
And also they clearly were.
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah. So for me, United have just got to pay out the money. But also from what Mark said there, even if you extend Paul Pogba's contract and pay him a ridiculous amount of money every month to play for Manchester United, right? No other club is paying that. Paul Pogba wants the money. Rhoda wants the money. Just tie him down. Because if there is a point where he does want to leave, then you make it amicable and you may let him go amicably. For now, just pay him whatever you want to pay him to keep him at the club.
I think it would be smarter for both parties if we were to tie him down for another year and make
at least
well, even a year, and make the promise to say, look, we'll allow you to go for this much and we will allow you to go. But just sign a contract so we can get some money. It doesn't even have to be so that we price everybody out, because that's just going to go Alexis Sanchez vibes again. Okay, just tie him down for another year. Maybe put a release clause in there and say, look, we'll allow you to go at that point, but at this moment in time, we need your help.
That's a good point.
I think that's what Ollie's done now.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong.
No, that's what I think. I think Kartik. I think that's what Raiola will be saying. If he's negotiating any new contract, that's what they'll want in a release clause. And we know what United are like; they don't want that kind of thing. But it's better to just do it, get the money, but getting potentially another year out of him, maybe 2. For me, I think with him as well, we've seen like the best out of him. And I know Carter just saying about Ollie, but we've seen the best because they brought in Bruno. They're looking like they're doing something, and that's when he was playing his best football. And so for me, I think it's what are the ambitions of United? I know, like, even back when, Rooney and all that, what is our ambitions? Where do we want to be? And I think if we go out and sign a Sancho, do things that look promising, that's going to be better for us in terms of signing him as well, because I think that does matter. And, people say, they should keep out of what the manager's doing. But if the manager's signing quality players, then you're more likely to want to stay. Whereas if it's just sort of last minute rushing around, you're going to think, well, nothing's changed here.
Vicky made a great comment about we did it for Ronaldo.
Yeah,
absolutely
exactly.
spot on. Who were the owners at that point? The Glazers. They were desperate to get rid of him that summer because the money that had come in from Real Madrid. But Ferguson obviously intervened, spoke to Ronaldo, a little bit of negotiation to say, look, just stay one more year, and then they got 80 million for him. Okay, these are the same people, so I think that's a very good comment.
Can I just say on a Pogba thing, like you mentioned there, Nat, about, so to speak, aspirations being important to him. That Pogba wants to win the Premier League. That's obvious. He obviously wants to win the Champions League as well, without a doubt. But for me, the thing with Paul Pogba is at United, he went within that season that he played some good football under Mourinho. We picked up the League Cup. We picked up the Europa League as well. And that was meant to be the building blocks for United to go on to get back to where they are. Would we say that if Ollie does get the Europa League this season and second place, does that show Pogba enough aspiration? Or for Pogba, is it, well, we've just nearly done it again? Like, that doesn't show that we're going to potentially challenge for the league next season.
No.
That's what I think the problem is. I think for Pogba now, unfortunately, because he's been part of a couple of rebuilds,
It's done.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to believe that United are going to be good enough to win the league again, unfortunately, because he's seen it fall flat on its arse too many times, this project. So then it's down to Solskjaer, like you said earlier on, Karthik. What's Solskjaer saying to him? What promises are being made? Mark, you're spot on with what you just said. If we can make that happen, I think perfect. But for me, I want to see Pogba play here for the rest of his career, actually, and I want to see him play here happily. But it's just not going to happen, because I think to sustain a project for that long, you need to be like United were at their peak. And I think any football club is now going to find it difficult to sustain that much momentum season in, season out, and there never be rumours about footballers. It's just not going to happen. So it's tough. It's really tough. He could go whenever he wants. I think that's the problem now. It's player power.
Yeah, for me, I think it's done. I think it's quite obvious Pogba. He's not. See, there's a comment that says he doesn't look unhappy with the team. I don't think he is. I think he's unhappy with not winning anything. I don't think it's a case of, I'm unhappy here. I think it's a case of, I can do better than this. So I think what's happened now, Ben, you mentioned whether second in Europa League would be enough to keep him. No, because I think it's a case of, Ollie's told him, help us get second in the Europa League and then I'll let you go. And he's gone, sure. If we turn around and then go with what Mark says and say, actually, can we get one more year so we can get more money for you? He goes, hang on a minute, you're taking the piss a little bit here. I've helped you out. I've tried to stay respectful. Just let me leave. And whether there's buyers or not is another question. But I think it's done.
Do we think Pogba wants to win team accolades here more than he wants to win a Ballon d'Or? This isn't me jumping on Pogba's back going, he's selfish, he's in it for himself. Blah. That's not me saying that. But Pogba's always come across to me like a footballer who wants to be, so to speak, celebrated as one of the best footballers in world football. And for me, he's got the stature of someone who should be winning Ballon d'Ors. If you think of the most marketable players in world football, Pogba's up there with Ronaldo and Messi. Yet he's not up there with Ronaldo and Messi when it comes to his footballing status. So another thing is, he does need to be in a side that's championed year in, year out for being one of the best clubs in world football. And unfortunately, like I was saying there, with the Premier League, with how tough Pogba's found it, getting form, potentially he needs to go to somewhere like PSG, where he can look good week in, week out, no matter if he's having a bad game or not, to be celebrated as that footballer. You know, I think it's difficult. I think Pogba wants that Ballon d'Or, and I can't see him winning it at United. I can't see it.
No.
I do agree. I think that I know that he loves the club, and I think that
I think he loves the club too.
In order for him to achieve what he wants, and let's be honest, like you don't get the players like Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, and that ilk. Everybody is out for themselves, and that's just the world that we live in, for one way or another. But you've got to remember, whether we keep him or not, Paul Pogba will go off form at some point. So it's inevitable that at some point we're going to be without him anyway. So we have to move on at that point. It's not the end of the world. So if he goes, we will move on. If he stays, great. And hopefully we move on in the right direction. So it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out. Really quickly then, before we end the show, obviously we've got Brighton tomorrow. Men's and women's team have got Brighton tomorrow. So really quickly, let's go. Score prediction. I'll go to John first for the women's team because I've not got a clue what to expect from that game. So John, you tell me first. And Nat, obviously. I'm
going to go for a nice little 2-0 win on that one.
Nat, what do you reckon?
Yeah, 3-0 for the women. Let's go.
Okay, and the men's then, what are we expecting? Because obviously we need a win, don't we, really? And this is a game that we should be absolutely spanking them, because this is a team that can't finish. We can't let them score. We have to be keeping a clean sheet. I'm sorry, we just do. What do we reckon? Mark, what's your score prediction?
4-0.
Lovely. Is there a hat-trick in there somewhere?
No.
Boring. Go on, John.
I don't think it'll be that much. I'm going to go for another 2-0 maybe. Yeah.
2-0.
Still okay. I'll still take that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what do you reckon?
You know, I'm going to go for the same as the women. 2-3-0 victories.
Decent. Ben, I'm presuming you're going to say 3-1 with a Mason Greenwood first goal.
I'm going to go Mason Greenwood first goal. But what the score is, who bloody knows? Do you know what? I'm going to say 1-0. It's Old Trafford, isn't it? It's United at Old Trafford. It's the first game back after the international break. All the Reds have played, more or less. So yeah, I'm going to go 1-0 to United. Mason Greenwood.
I'm going to go with 7-0. There we go. I said it.
Oh my god! It's going to be 1-0.
It's going to be 0-0.
Well, no, do you know what? It's even more exciting. Mark's got some points on the game.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to see a bit more positivity, please, everybody.
I want to see them start fast. They need to come out the traps.
I'm going to say that the last time we were on very good form and didn't lose in 21 games was after the international break. Everyone seems to have had a bit of a rest. Last time they needed match fitness, they played. This time they've had a bit more of a rest.
Half our squad's injured.
Eh?
Half our squad's injured.
Who?
Okay, not half, but about 5 of them, aren't they? Lindelof's injured. Martial didn't train the other day. Rashford didn't train the other day.
Martial hasn't turned up all season. No, listen, we're also
Martial FC. Get on to Mark.
No, not. I love Martial. He's just not doing it for me at the minute. And also, Brighton are a very good team, very well structured, attacking. Okay.
Well, if you ask Temi, they play better than United do.
Yeah, they do actually.
There's an argument for that.
What are you on about, Karthik?
I would probably.
They don't.
Well, I think that they're very well drilled, very well structured, and I don't think that would be a stupid thing to throw out there. To be honest,
so good. They're 16th in the league.
They play better than Arsenal. Put it that way.
But because of that, we play well against teams that attack us, where we can run the channels. I reckon Daniel James will probably start, and I think we'll win 3 or 4-0.
Yeah, well, you're wrong. You're wrong by about 3 goals, mate. Vicky, I'm on some clean glass of clarity. That's why I'm on. We're winning 7-0 tomorrow. God. It's going to be fun.
I love that, Mark. We need your weekly rundowns more often.
Look at me, so proud of himself.
I'm here all week.
So proud of himself. Right, I'm going to be honest. I need a piss. I'm going to end this stream now. Everyone, thank you for watching. Everyone, like the video. Make sure to comment below your predictions for tomorrow's game, and of course, who do United need to sign to win the league next season?
Karthik, wait.
What?
I just want to see you wait yourself.
Oh, piss off. I was wondering what you... I thought you were going to actually ask me something then. No, I can hold it in. I'm quite skilled at that. Anyway, what was there?
You're quite skilled at that.
You've
What a thing to brag about. I can hold a Wii. Check out me. I'm Karthik. At Karthik can hold a Wii. That's going to be a new Twitter account.
Oh, bloody hell. Lovely. Right, okay. Where was I? Yeah, let me know who you think United should sign to win the league next season. Are we going to win the league next season? Like the video if you hate Mino Raiola. And, of course, make sure to tune in for tomorrow's videos. There'll be loads of stuff coming. Until next time, see you all in a bit. Cheers.